Welcome into KXLY Plus. My name is Julian Mininsohn alongside Alex Crescenti here live inside McCarthy Athletic Center as Selection Sunday has just wrapped up for the Gonzaga men's and women's teams. We had 3 teams total from our area, Gonzaga men's, Gonzaga women's, and Washington State women's as well, all NCAA tournament bound. We're going to break down each of them for you, where they're playing, who they're playing, and the chances at the NCAA championship and potentially a Final Four and all that fun stuff. We're going to start with the Gonzaga men. Yeah, 3 seed in the West region, taking on Grand Canyon in Denver on Friday.
Maybe the only surprise coming out of this one was the location. We kind of figured they were going to be on that 3 line for a while. The ability to move up to a 2 was just too hard after some teams ahead of them won last night and some teams around them, also with some strong resumes as well, Baylor and UConn and Marquette and whatnot. But, they are going to Denver, don't really have to travel a whole lot, which is going to be very beneficial because for a while we thought maybe Albany, New York, maybe Greensboro,
right.
North Carolina, those would definitely have an impact when it comes to jet lag, especially on just a couple days rest.
Yeah, and you talk about Gonzaga and the path to a West regional championship and potentially another Final Four. That region very tough. You got Kansas as the 1 seed, UCLA as the 2 seed, Gonzaga as the 3 seed there with a potential second round matchup against TCU. But first you got to get by Grand Canyon, a team that's coached by Bryce Drew, who is one of the, heroes when it comes to NCAA tournament one shining moment shots. Had that shot at the late 90s at Valparaiso to beat Ole Miss. But a tough bracket nonetheless, Alex, when you think of teams that they have to get by, top quality programs, blue bloods.
It is a tough bracket, and I know we in the media, we can discuss, the different matchups and the potential down the road here. They're going to take it one matchup at a time. But when we think about it, we think about, it's tough if it remains chalk. But what's March Madness taught us? Not going to be chalk, especially after that first day, especially after that first few hours. You're going to be seeing some upsets here. So, that could really benefit Gonzaga if, they continue to advance down the line.
And they're going to be playing at 4:35 Pacific time on Friday at Ball Arena in Denver against Grand Canyon to open up the NCAA tournament. Alex and I will have coverage for you right here on KXLY leading up to that in our Fast Break to Houston coverage.
And a couple interesting notes also about the West region. St. Mary's is the 5 seed in that region. They're at the top of the region there, so they wouldn't face off until the Elite Eight. Highly unlikely. But also another interesting tidbit is Boise State snuck into the bottom part of the region, so they could potentially have a matchup with Gonzaga in the Sweet 16, as highly unlikely as that, but it would be a reunion between Leon Rice, a longtime assistant here at GU, and Mark Few, so that would be really interesting that could happen. Also, Tyson Dagenhart leads the Broncos. He is a Mount Spokane grad, so a lot of local connections here just in that area.
Gonzaga women's basketball, we just found out where they are going. They are going to be the 9 seed in the 2nd Seattle region. They're going to be traveling to Stanford, California. They're in the pod with the number 1 team in that region, the Stanford Cardinal. But Gonzaga gets Ole Miss in that first round, a team that is SEC team, a very tough SEC this year. But this Gonzaga team trying to avenge that loss that they had in the WCC championship game against Portland last week.
That's right, yeah. Tough loss there, and maybe that slipped them just a few spots in the tournament. But yeah, like you said, that's where they were last year, so they're kind of familiar. They know what to expect. They got that win in the first round last year, so all that experience really helps when it comes to this tournament. And also another beneficial part for them, they don't really have to do a whole lot of traveling.
Right.
We heard from the players and the coaches of how the jet lag impacted them last year when they were playing out in Louisville. But, direct flight down to Palo Alto, Santa Clara, whatever airport you need to get in there. It's not a hard flight. Don't have to worry about time change. And if they were to advance past Stanford, then you're in Seattle. It's very beneficial for this team in the long run.
That is something to keep in mind, that this year the NCAA women's tournament only has 2 regional sites as opposed to 4 like in years past. So the 2 regional sites are Greenville and Seattle. So it could be a little bit of a home cooking if Gonzaga is able to get to from Stanford to Seattle. Another team we're going to talk about, Washington State women's, coming off their first ever Pac-12 tournament championship game. They earned a 5 seed, which was higher than any other projection that we've seen coming into the NCAA tournament. They'll take on Florida Gulf Coast in the Greenville region, Greenville number 2 region.
Yeah, that's right. They're going to have that matchup, which they'll be favored in, and if they were to advance, then it's possibly Villanova. They are in that Villanova, Pennsylvania pod. So they're going to have to travel out to the East Coast, but very good chance of advancing to the Sweet 16 if they can, get a couple wins here. They're also searching for their very first NCAA tournament win of all time. Been there 4 times, 3 years in a row now, still searching for that first win. This is maybe their best chance ever. Charlize Ledger-Walker, this could be her chance to be really noticed on the national stage. I think we're going to see that.
So we're going to have coverage for you all week long, all tournament long, right here on 4 News Now. Alex and I will be traveling to Denver with coverage, our Fast Break to Houston coverage, starting on Wednesday out there in Denver, Colorado. We'll break down everything, all the on and off the court stories about the Gonzaga men's team. Of course, we'll keep tabs on the Gonzaga women, Washington State women, as they all try to make their runs to the Final Four. We'll have coverage here on KXLY and KXLY Plus. You're watching it on our streaming platform right now, and KXLY.com as well. So stay tuned for all those updates from all those platforms right there. But for now, live inside McCarthy Athletic Center on Selection Sunday, Julian Mininsohn, that's Alex Crescenti for News Now Sports.